Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Furiously Curious Show. Today I'm having a conversation with Randy Dyck. He's a local business guy, a realtor, and so we talk about Christianity and business, how we show up, the lessons we learned from that, how we do good family life balance, the lessons he learned along the way and some of his story. And so I know there's a big variety in the different people I interview and the different subjects and things that I talk about, just the things I'm curious about and interested in. So today's about that, and hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to another episode of Furiously Curious Show. I'm here with Randy Dyck. He is a guy that Kevin Brown put me in touch with a couple months ago, and we went out for coffee and enjoyed our chats. And you being in business and being a Christian, it's intriguing to me, and I thought it'd be fun to have you on the show and chat about that. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cal.
And maybe let's just start with your life story, and then we can kind of go into the lessons and things we chatted about when we met up.
Okay. Well, born and raised in a small town in southern Alberta, Pincher Creek, Alberta, a great little town. We were farmers of grain and cattle, and just had an amazing childhood there. I have a twin brother that super close to, and we just had so much fun on the farm as twins. My next brother, so I've got three brothers, my twin, and then two older brothers, 8 and 11 years older. So we were kind of like the oops, and we were, if you asked our older brothers, they said we got way too many liberties and freedoms, and we didn't have to work near as hard as they did and all that. But we just had an amazing childhood growing up, and lots of great life lessons happened on the farm. One that I think I maybe shared with you, maybe not, but I broke my neck at 14 on that farm. Woke up paralyzed, and it really shaped and formed who I am today. But just a wonderful family I came from, or have come from, and
a Christian family. You grew up Christian. Your parents were all Christians.
Yeah, born and raised in a Christian home, a little country church. 20 plus miles outside of town. We lived outside of town too, but this church was out in the middle of nowhere, and just a little white church in the middle of nowhere. And so we would drive, some 20 minutes to get to church out in the middle of nowhere. And small church, 20, 25 families at best. Yeah, and then it would shrink down to 20. But just a wonderful, wonderful childhood.
And you mentioned Mennonite church?
Yes. Yes. So a Mennonite a general conference church. There's different Mennonites.
Yeah.
There's in that southern Alberta area, and within 3-4 miles of our farm, we had Haldimans, Hutterites, and then of course our Mennonites.
And the Dutch Reformed.
And not too many Dutch there. No, not too many Dutch
No?
in southern Alberta there.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So and these Mennonites, I mean, there's different rules you guys had. Like you when we were chatting earlier, you said that the men and the women sat on different sides of the church. What was that about?
Yeah, so very interesting. And as a child, I never thought anything different. I just thought this is the way church is. So the women went in the left door, the back of the church, and the men went in the right door, and the men sat on the right side of the church, and the women sat on the left side. However, my dad didn't do that. He said, this isn't right. I want to be with my wife. And so he actually sat on the right side where the women were. And there were a couple of other men that did that too. So I don't know who was the instigator, who was the bold one that said, I'm going across to the other side first. But I just knew that my parents sat together on the left-hand side of the church. And
Your dad thought, like, he had his own opinions, and he thought for himself. He wasn't necessarily directed by a follower.
No, my dad was a big thinker. He did many things that were, I think, uncommon, extraordinary, and different than many, especially within the church. And not that he was a rebel or he was trying to cause angst within the church. He just said, I think it's this way, and just went about doing it, but didn't become a conflict or bringing
or bringing other people down, or
yeah, didn't cause battles or anything like that. And even within the community, he was a real strong community person. He was on the co-op board. So in Alberta, co-ops are really big. And so the co-op was a big deal in the small town. It was like everything, the grocery store, the general store, the lumber yard, everything ran around the co-op. And so my dad was on that board, and he was responsible for building a mall in this small town. And it was a lot of things that he was very proactive and a very big, strong, well, I shouldn't say big, but a strong leader
Yeah.
in many pieces of the community, even in the Alberta Wheat Pool, which again, he was another director on the Alberta Wheat Pool,
Yeah.
which is, for farmers, is a big deal. It's not so big anymore, but back then it was huge.
Yeah. And, but also you mentioned earlier a little bit rebellious as well. How do you think that character plays into how he showed up?
Yeah. Rebellious in the way that he and my mother met at a private school in a small town called Roster in Saskatchewan. My mother's dad was a pastor, and here rolls in this guy from Alberta on a Harley Davidson, and he smokes, and that was not acceptable. But anyways, he did that, and he was a bit of a rebel. He got kicked out of that school. And somehow he convinced my mom's dad, my grandpa, that he was worthy, and they got married. And so I had a wonderful marriage. And I just have to really appreciate and thank the genes that I came from, my just amazing parents.
Okay, so you're 14. You have the impact on that big accident. Tell me a little bit more about that. What impact did that have? I mean, you have a twin brother that didn't have that accident. Like you're going to the same school.
Yeah, so that was at 14, and he and I were horsing around doing some things on the farm, and one thing led to another. Next thing you know, I'm torpedoing off this motorcycle headfirst into a building, helmetless. And come to, I'm laying on the ground and I can't move. I'm paralyzed. And my twin was right there. He saw it all happen. Really a challenging time for both of us, because we're essentially one, and we're identical twins. Everything was the same. We're equals at everything. Everything was a race. The race to the bus stop, race to see who could score the first goal, the race the race that, and in a moment I couldn't move. I spent the next couple months in a hospital in Calgary, and thankfully, I didn't sever my spinal cord, or I didn't damage my spinal cord beyond it being able to be repaired. And really, all it did was there was traction put in place. My neck was fused, so I still have 3 vertebrae that are still wired solid today. Don't know it unless I show you or say it is, because I've been very, very fortunate with it. But it took me a couple months to really get to start walking again. And even today, there's still a few things that I just, get numbness here and there. But
you remember at 14, did you get depressed from it? Did you were you frustrated?
Oh, well, I mean, it was devastating at first, absolutely. And got a lot of questions. Why? Why me? Why this? But then I somehow came to the realization, and really it's where I found my purpose as well. I write about it in a book called Ignite Your Purpose. The doctor, a Christian as well, Dr. Taylor, he just leaned in one day when he was... It's funny, I talk about this often, but there's times it just really draws a lot of emotion. But he just said, Randy, God's got a big plan for you. You shouldn't be alive, and you should not be able to walk, and here you are. God has a master plan for you. And I believe I'm living a lot of that plan today, serving, helping people through my work, through my relationships, through leadership, guidance. I just love to really see people succeed and help people along the way. So,
So how do you go from 14? What's next? You go into high
Mm.
school. You graduate. What happened after that?
Yeah, so it took me about a year to really get going again. It took a long time. It was grade 9. I came out of the hospital at less than 60 pounds.
Oh
I
wow.
was just a rack of bones. I was always a small kid, but I was a featherweight now. I was a paper clip, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it took me about a year, but here's the beauty. No physiotherapy other than my brother. My twin brother was my physiotherapist because there was this standard that I knew that I was at one point. And how do I get back to that standard? How do I run as fast as he? That's my standard. How do I ride a motorcycle again as fast as he? How do I do anything?
Yeah.
And so that was my drive. And so being a twin, you're very competitive. At least I think all twins are competitive because you have this exact, absolute, perfect competitor.
Yeah. I mean, I think about this often. My wife and I just found out that we're having another kid, but I was really hoping for twins because just like even for myself, like I'm kind of a nuts or whatever, and I just imagine having another identical of myself
Yes.
would just be so fun. But I can imagine how it definitely amps up the competition.
Yeah. So everything was a competition, and it took me time to catch up, but I eventually did. He was always a little bit bigger than I was to begin with, but now he was a little bit bigger
Yeah.
and stronger and faster. But that just drove me again and again and again to be more competitive, and that shaped and formed who I am today because I'm really competitive, and that served me very, very well. Now, I was born competitive, but that again
Drove
just
it.
elevated it because that was the only way I was going to get close to being
Yeah.
to that standard again.
Kind of reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers. He talks about immigrants. Like basically they come here with less than everyone else, and they seem to do better just because they have that type of mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I know from when we hung out, grade 12 didn't go exactly as planned.
Yes, yes. So my twin and I both went off to Rosslyn Junior College where my parents met. They encouraged to go there, and we went. And I just had a fabulous year. But it was so fun, so fabulous, that I didn't study. I just went and played in the hockey rink, on the tennis court, in the stadium, gymnasium. Like I had all of these resources at my fingertips that I had never had before because we lived in the country and I didn't have all this so easy. And we had all this. So I spent way too much time just having fun. And it was about 3 days before graduation. I got a tap on the shoulder. They asked me to come to the office because there was something really important they needed to tell me. And I was going, oh, what could it be?
Yeah.
And they said, Randy, sorry to tell you this, but you're not going to graduate. You can't graduate. You missed social studies. And so no social, no graduation, which is really, really devastating because I sat at the back of the auditorium and watched my twin brother walk across the stage. Again, there's that standard,
Yeah.
that competitive standard. And I was in the back just,
Did you feel a lot of shame?
I was ashamed. I was hurt. I was upset. And my dad being the wise guy, the leader, the great dad, he tapped me and he said, let's go outside. This isn't doing you any good. And took me back to the motorhome there in the motorhome. And he sat me down. He says, what do you want to do about this? You got choices. What would you like to do? You've got options. And in my sobbing, I said, well, I guess I could take summer school, but what I really want to do is I want to come back. Here comes that competitive nature again. I want to come back and I want to prove to the teachers that I am actually a good student, that I can do this. And I wanted to come back and show the others too, because now they knew that I wasn't going to graduate. So I wanted to come back and I wanted to do it. So I came
And how
back.
how much of it did you want to do it for yourself? Because I mean, often find people doing in business even or something like that just to for the approval of others and stuff like that. Which especially at a young age, that's really big in you. Like, was there that self confidence and drive for yourself as well? Like I want to do this, not just for the teachers, proof to the teachers? And
That's a great question. And if I go back, why did I? It was such an easy decision for me. It really was. Now, my dad was really good at framing and then leading and allowing myself to make that decision.
yeah, yeah, 'cause I think that's a good point as well. Because I mean, your dad didn't. I know a lot of dads, or I believe a lot of dads would not have that response, and they would be very angry or upset or harsh, or not care at all and stuff like that. But your dad cared deeply, but he also empowered you to make your own decision. He didn't, which I think is really important.
Yeah, he really did empower me to make that decision. And the moment I made it, he says, "Great, now we know." And it was so good for me because two things. I got to go back and redo it. So prove to myself, because it's really important that you prove it to yourself, but also it could show the others that I was worthy of doing this. But more importantly, what it did is it allowed me to be Randy, not the twins. And that's really, one of the challenges being a twin is that you're always lumped together. And so this was a clear break. New friends. Nobody knew my friends. I didn't know Jerry's friends at that time. He went off and did his thing. I came back and did my thing. And for me, it was magical because of the life lessons that I learned by doing that. I would never take that back. So there's things like breaking my neck. Today, I wouldn't want it any other way. In the moment, of course. Yeah. In the moment, of course. But today, I am grateful. I am grateful for that accident. Yeah. I'm grateful that I know what it's like to be paralyzed.
Yeah.
Because
how long did that last? Paralyzed?
Well, in the first week, I started getting feeling back. I was still being fed by others in that first week. By week 2, I could start to use my right hand was pretty good. My left hand was one that was really buggered up.
Yeah.
I didn't walk for a couple of months, and just to get up and even stand was extremely difficult. Yeah. But
yeah.
But so I wouldn't want to give up that, and I wouldn't want to give up flunking grade 12 and doing it over. Like that was so important for who I am today.
The growth and that stuff. Yeah. After high school, what's next? You also just grab your mic and just tilt it in a bit more. You just want to like that.
Yeah. After high school, went off to I did a summer at the farm, and then I went off to Calgary and worked at the Calgary Zoo. Okay. And did construction there.
Yeah.
And the market was really tough. The economy was really, really tough. And so I spent about 6 months unemployed. And in that process, I made a decision to go to Columbia Bible College. And
would you say, like, growing up, like, you don't look like a farmer now, but, growing up there, like, did you feel like you were sheltered to a pretty degree and, like, didn't know what the world was all about?
In some ways, my parents did a really good job of sheltering us, but also letting us have experiences that opened up our eyes to other things. I would say I had a really great balanced life of how much should I see and shouldn't see, and experience and shouldn't experience.
Yeah. Okay. But you go to Bible college. What drove you? What drove you there?
What drove me there was. That private high school I went to was also a Christian school, a Mennonite Christian school. And so, some of my friends had gone to this Bible school out here. Some of my cousins had gone. And so I just heard really good things about it. And it was just about, understanding who I am, understanding my faith and how that all fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And no intention to... I didn't feel like led into the ministry or anything like that, which a lot of people do. I didn't. I just wanted to go and experience something and understand who I was at a deeper level.
And after 2 years, what did you learn?
Well, after 2 years, I found a beautiful woman.
Okay.
Jolene and I met there.
Yeah.
And but just dug into the Word and learned more about my incredible maker, our incredible maker and creator and our savior.
Yeah.
And made my faith more about myself than just something that was handed down through my family. Not that ever felt like it was being, pounded into me, but then it became mine.
Yeah.
Because I had to make some decisions, and that's what was great about going to RJC as well. At 16, I'm making all of these decisions. I didn't have to ask anybody for anything. I was making decisions whether I should go out with these people or those people.
RGC was a remote high school then?
Rostern Junior College in a small town called Rostern,
Okay.
about 1,200 people,
Yeah.
45, 50 miles north of Saskatoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you actually left your parents' home at
Dormitory.
16. Dormitory. Okay.
500 miles away.
Wow.
So it changed my life. It shaped and formed me, just like breaking my neck, going off to this private high school. Oh, flunking grade 12, doing it all over again.
Yeah.
All of those really, really shaped me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how life experiences can do that, or the differences that makes. You get married, you're a realtor now, along with a bunch of other things. How did you meet your wife, you get married.
Yeah.
How did you get into the career you're in today?
Yeah, we so Jolene and I met on her second year. She was her first year as my second. We fell in love instantly, across the parking lot kind of thing, that first day, and here we are 37 years later.
Awesome.
Yeah, happily married, 3 kids, 3 in-laws and a grandkid. But we just settled into life in Abbotsford. She's from Steinbach, Manitoba, and we just fell in love with the area and settled in. And I was working construction. Wasn't really who I was. Even I knew I was never going to be a farmer, even growing up on a farm.
Okay.
I just thought I was going to be in sales. It just didn't feel good in my gut. Mm-hmm. I always knew I was going to be in sales. Okay. I just had that intuition in my gut. And I thought it was going to be in the clothing industry.
Okay.
And so I was doing construction, really didn't enjoy it, but I love sports. And I just kept bugging the guy at the sports shop, Clearwork Sports. Hey, is there an opportunity for me to work here? And one day I walked in, he says, today's the day. You want to work here? I said, yes, I do. So I started working at Clearwork Sports and spent about a year and a half there, and they just kept giving me larger roles, larger leadership roles. And it was about 2.5, 3 years in, they said, hey, we're going to open up a new store. We want you to manage the store. So I managed the store. It was called Vision Sport. And that's
25 years old at this time?
Yeah, I was 25 years old, yeah. And it was high-end sports, and I just loved it. It was so fun, so great. But I was making like $28,000 a year. A car payment, a house payment, a kid, another kid on the way. Like it wasn't.
What year would this have been?
This was in the early 90s, late 80s, okay. Early 90s.
How much would a home have been in the early 90s in Abbotsford?
Yeah, so we bought a townhome, our first year of marriage, brand new, $78,000. Beautiful townhome.
And what is an average townhome in Abbotsford today?
Well, that exact townhome sells for about $750,000 today. So 10 times.
Crazy.
Yeah. 10 times.
And relative to your wage, I mean, that makes a big difference, but.
Yeah.
Okay. But so you're running the store, $28,000 a year.
Yeah. And I kept asking, hey, I'd really like an ownership piece. I really, really love, leadership and I want an ownership piece. I grew up on a farm. I want to build something.
Yeah.
And, as much as they meant it, they couldn't provide it. They said, yeah, just give us another year or two. I really think they wanted me to have an ownership stake, but, it's just not in the cards, right? So I had a friend that is my church. He said, you'd be really good in real estate. Had no idea what real estate really was about. And I said, okay, I like your lifestyle. Looks pretty cool. Yeah. So I went and got my license and entered real estate in May of 1992 and doubled my income in the first year. Made $64,000 and thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Wow, $64,000, compared to $28,000, $30,000.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it in 1992. And here we are 33 years later. It's served me very, very well. And I've led a lot of people through my team and helped a lot of people. About 7,000 people have used myself or somebody on my team to either buy or sell. So we've had a great run at it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you're still realtor today? Like what are all the different things you're involved in today?
Yeah. So today I'm still an active realtor, but I've taken the direction of being a bit more of a leader, mentor, coach. I have a coaching program, mentorship program. And so I'm just trying to instill some of the things, the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience and expertise, professionalism that I've learned over the years onto others. And my goal all the time in my office, whenever somebody came in, was never about being the best realtor. It was about being the best version of themselves or the best person. How do I help this person become a better human being on this planet that we've been gifted?
And what made you think that? Like, how did you learn that, or what made you think of it that way?
Well, everybody in my life that I admired, that was their mantra. That's what they did. Whether it be my father, any teacher that I had, anybody in business that I followed or watched, it was always, how do I serve and help? And if I can serve and help you, eventually they get what they want. Or
Yeah.
So it's just.
So
it's really,
we're selfish human beings and stuff like that. That doesn't come natural to us. But I agree, it's very powerful in business. And what value can you add? How do talk me through that why that's so important to view it that way?
Well, let me ask you a question. When you give, do you feel good?
Yes.
So giving makes us feel good. Giving makes us feel happy. And so I think it's a natural if we give ourselves that opportunity. If we give ourselves that opportunity. Now, many of us maybe don't have the environment that was fostered and developed. And I think if you can give those people that maybe didn't have that environment, it might take some time for them to actually pivot into a different idea of what that looks like. But I think we all want to be giving of some type. We're here because of our Creator, because of our God, and we have been given a gift. And so being given something, I think it's just in our DNA that we give. In fact, when is your soul created? Maybe that's a bigger question. I think my soul, our soul, everybody's soul is really created at conception. It's already being formed.
Yes.
Who we are, what we are. And
Conception being like
the fertilized egg.
Yeah, fertilized egg, yeah.
Because at that point, it is now soaking up everything that is happening. So that mother, our mother, your mother, that environment is really being brought into my being, my soul, my creation. And that's why I'm so grateful for what I had, because I just look at my parents and just so happy and so blessed by who they are. And so I think a lot of who we are is, of course, nature, but then nurture takes over too. But that nature happens at conception, in my belief.
Yeah. Go back to growing up and your relationship with your dad. Like he was running a business, he was busy and stuff like that. But it sounds, you're talking about him. You're getting emotional. He obviously had a really big impact on your life. What did you learn from him in that? Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like he saw you for you, and it wasn't like his business was more important than his kids.
Yeah, great question. I didn't see the magnitude of what he was teaching me at the time. It's only through time that you sometimes see things. The other thing I'll say is that my two older brothers were 11 and 8 years older, so he had a bit of a test run on two others, and he could then reflect. I think that was a huge value add to him on what he gave my twin and I.
Have you ever had a conversation with your older brothers about that? Like that their view of your dad is different?
We've talked about it, but in this discussion, I'm now thinking I have to have that conversation because we've never had it so direct about that. My older brothers would often say that you guys got away with murder, my twin and I. You got away with everything. You didn't have to work as hard. You didn't have this and you didn't have that. And that could be true. And maybe that's the reflection time that my parents had between, that 8-year set that they could, pause and think about, what do we do right here? What do we do wrong? So that might be, that's a great question. Thanks for bringing that to the surface. I'm going to ask my older brothers about that. And by the way, I've got great relationships with my older brothers too. We're a good group.
Good.
But your original question was, I didn't see the value that my dad was instilling in me early on, and it wasn't
But did you know he loved you?
Oh yes.
How did you know that?
How would I know that? Just the way he would treat me, the way he would give me opportunity to make decisions. There's times that I got disciplined. And I was like, holy cow, where did that come from? That was a bit of a, a rude lash there.
Yeah.
But, people.
That would be loving as well, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
people parented different back then.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But we did a lot of great things together, and the experiences that we had, whether it be in the tractor, driving the tractor, doing the chores, cultivating, combining, whatever, and the liberties that he would give me, that I just assumed was, everybody got these liberties, driving vehicles at a young age and motorcycle or this or that, things that make you happy as a young boy.
Yeah.
So it was good. And we had enough resources, money to do some things that others didn't have. So I really appreciated that. I was really grateful for that. We had what I thought was like one of the nicest farms in the whole entire area of Pincher Creek. Always our crops seemed to be better than everybody else's. So I saw these things that my dad was doing, and you kind of just expect them because you don't know anything different. But in hindsight, I go back and I think, oh man, I remember him germinating different samples of seed to see which one he should plant. This was in the off season, right?
Yeah.
He's germinating different seeds and he's testing them, and he's always, wanting to know what the best equipment would be to use in this circumstance and how to make the best crop come out of the soil.
Curious mindset.
Curious mindset. Curious, yeah. He was a curious guy, and I think this is a really important thing. Curiosity is a gift that we sometimes often lose.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I would think that most of us, as we age, we think curiosity is not that important, but it's still, I think, one of the greatest gifts we have. Our curiosity and our imagination are the two greatest gifts that we've been given, or one of the, some of the greatest gifts that we've been given.
Why do you think it's so important?
Well, it's curiosity. It helps us understand and learn. It's our imagination keeps us fresh and learning again. Meet a boring person and they're just not curious. They have no imagination. Meet somebody you want to hang around with, and they're curious. They're asking questions, and they're seeking answers and trying to level up. But that's curiosity.
Yeah. So you're in the real estate world now for 33 years. I mean, there's a lot of things that you've learned along the way. I'm curious about how did your work intersect with your faith? Like, what did that look like practically? Like in open-ended question, whatever you want to go with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a prayer I'd often pray, and I probably don't pray it enough. But God, make me the best disciple I can be, number one. Number two, make me the best husband I can be. Number three, make me the best father I can be. And number four, then make me the best businessman, in that order. And that is a really tough thing to do. I would pray this because I knew how difficult it was in my life. I knew that because I often would shake them up and drop them out in different order. And often it was business that came first with, the context of all these other things. But that to me was really important. Yet I struggled doing it all the time. I really did. In fact, I still struggle with that. But I think when you can put it in that order and you have a faith, and gosh, we're talking Christianity here, but everybody's got a faith of some sort, even if they say they don't. And I think you need to prioritize how you place things in order to get the most out of who you are. And
I know it's interesting you say that, because it's just even thinking about it is important. Because if you don't identify it or identify what's important to you in what order, then you're going to go off the whim of how you feel,
right,
and that's pretty aimless,
right. And I'd even say, go further, that I believe that there will be a day when I pass. We're all going to pass on. We're all going to pass away. We're all going to die. But I think we're going to be shown the potential version of who we could be and who we are. And so we better live this life that we have today to the best that we can, to the fullest we can, because I think there'll be a day that I'll be standing in front of my Maker, in front of God. He'll say, Randy, here's what I created you to be, and here is what you are. Are you an identical version of that? I think that's a really good test for me to always think, okay, Randy, have you been this? Have you been that? Like, as God would want me to be.
And do you find that, I think that's a very noble thing to think about, and something we should aspire to. There's also a ton of pressure that comes with that, because you have to, when you set these goals, I need to be a perfect dad, I need to be a perfect husband, I need to be a perfect businessman. Like, I want to do all these things really well, really motivated, driven, competitive. I can relate to those things. How did you feel that pressure, and how did you manage it?
Well, I think, God gives us free will. And I think, the most important prayer to pray is the Lord's Prayer, because we can't add anything to it. We can't put our own intention into it. It is what it is. And so we can't add to it. And may your will be done. If we really believe that God has everything in control, then we should be able to be comfortable as long as we apply ourselves in all things. And his will be perfect for us, but we often want our own will. And that's, I think, where we add that extra pressure. We need this, we need that. And, I was just actually listening on happiness, which is really what we all strive. We all want to be content and happy.
Yeah.
But is happiness even attainable? Is it attainable? We have versions of happiness. Mick Jagger sings the song, I get no satisfaction, But we do get satisfaction, but then we're not satisfied with that satisfaction.
Want more.
Want more. It's about contentment. And, you ask a billionaire if he's happy, and he goes, well, no, I need to make another billionaire. I need to make another billion to be a two-time billionaire. It's...
How does that work? I mean, you're in the realtor world, you're in a sales job. I can relate to this. I've been in sales for a while, and I love, like, it's just like, you need to be driven to a certain degree to be in that spot for to grow and to move forward and stuff like that. How do you do that in a content way? Because I think a lot of times it's driven by a lack of contentment. But I think that you can be just as successful doing it and be content. I think it ties probably into a little bit of like the mindset of coming into every interaction of what can you give rather than what you can get.
Contentment. We, especially in this North America, or this continent, North America, first world, whatever, we desire stuff. Like, we think that's going to satisfy us. But I think less is more. Less is more. And it's a matter of managing your wants. Managing your wants.
So basically, like really get hyper focused on a small amount at once? Is that what you're saying?
I think you need to dive deep into yourself and say, why do I want this? Like, what is the intention for this want? And is this want going to make me better, a better person? Am I going to be happier 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now? Like, and of course, I think the easy answer is yes. I have a nice big house. It's going to make me happier. Is it? I recently read about this multi-billionaire, and he buys this 275-foot yacht, 50, 60, 70 million, I don't know, whatever it is. And he's not happy with it. It's not because the yacht isn't beautiful. He goes, crap, I now need to manage 25 to 30 more people in my life. And I really don't want to do that. So having less gives me more of what I want, which is freedom, less expectations on myself, more time with my family, more time for my hobby, more time with my maker, whatever, right? But I think we just get caught in this consumership.
Mm-hmm.
And it...
So is that something that, you do coaching as well? Like, is that something you talk about with the people that you coach, and be like, you can work 80 hours a week and you can, grow faster or anything, or you can work 40 or 50 and actually still have a life?
I'm still learning that.
Okay.
I was so wired, I still am so wired, so programmed to be an overachiever, competitive. I would kind of roll up my nose at people that weren't, crushing it. Yet I've come to understand where they are at and why they're doing what they're doing. Because I got to a point where I was exhausted and a bit burnt out by just chasing. And the problem is, when you're on that road, it's like a treadmill that you cannot get off. It is going so fast that you got to go at the pace of the treadmill or you're going to get gobbled up. I call it the task monster. There's always somebody or a monster just on your tail wanting to get at you, and you got to run as fast as you can to stay ahead of it and deal with all the stuff, which also helps you be productive. But I lived there for years and years. And so I've got a little bit of a different take on that now. Less is more. Maybe that's just through age. I don't know.
Yeah.
And meeting others that are happy with less.
Yeah. I haven't been a realtor myself, but I've been around enough of them and talked to them that it's a tough go sometimes in the sense of just the schedule being all over the place. Mm-hmm. High highs, low lows. Like how did, you're running a family and stuff like that, but you're doing showings in the evening, Saturdays, like things like that. Like, how did you manage all that?
Well, I'll say this and then I'll tell you how I managed it. It's interesting. When I was on a high, I was crushing it in real estate, but my family was on a low. I wasn't around. When I was around, they were on a high and I was on a low because they're going, gosh, where's my next deal? So, there's that teeter-totter that's always happening. And we talk about life balance. Is life balanced? Not really. When it comes to real estate, it's like all work and it's dancing over here. And then you finally get a bit of a break and you come across to this side and catch your breath. And then, gosh, I don't want to be here very long, but everybody seems to like me more then. So that's a real challenge. But as far as how we managed it in our home, we worked as a team. And so this was something that we talked about, my wife and I. And I said, honey, for me to be, successful, and then when I am not working and I want to have time with you, we're just going to have to divide up these chores. My chore is to go and make deals, and just let me do everything in my power to be, the best agent I can be, and you take care of everything outside of real estate, which means everything at home, the garbage, running the home, the finances at home, getting the kids everywhere they need to be. And then I'll just parachute in at an event. I'll just parachute in at coaching the baseball team that Kelsey or Sydney or Caleb's on. And so we would do that. I would literally just come to the ballpark. I'd change in the back of my vehicle into my ball outfit. The game would be over, and Jolene would take whoever back home, and I would go back to the vehicle and change, and off I go to my next appointment. So we just had this great understanding that...
But that's something you guys both agreed to. You wouldn't say that that's like the recipe that everyone should follow. That was just, that worked for you guys.
It worked for us. It worked for us. And the challenge with that, though, was, I would say, there'd be times that it just wasn't working. Come on, let's make it real.
Yeah.
There'd be times that Jolene would just be at her wit's end. Like, I can't do this anymore. I need you around more often. And then the ego inside of Randy would say, but I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for the family. This is all because of the family. And Jolene would snap back and say, no, you're doing it for your ego. You're doing it for yourself. And she was right. But in the moment, you don't always see it that way. And especially, when you're all stressed and heated, it's just your way or the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
33 years of doing what you're doing now, successful at it, done a lot of things right. But as we talked about earlier, it's the hard things that, often drive us to success, the lessons we learned along the way. What are some of your failures or regrets in the last 33 years in doing real estate and business and stuff like that, that you have, as you look back on, really learned a lot from?
Yeah, I would say, it's the commitments at home that maybe I didn't carry on as well as I should. And it's really hard. You've got people that have expectations of you, clients, and those expectations are often really high because you've created those expectations. You told them this is what you're going to do for them. And I would sometimes put those above everything, above all the family, whether it be my kids, my wife. So, there's regrets around that. I have the security, the insurance that they still love me. They still like me. We still, hang out together. I'm still married, which, there's times that it was shaky because real estate just consumes relationships. I would say one of the biggest challenges in real estate is not making deals. It's keeping relationships together. Because as a realtor, you put all these clients' relationships above all the most important relationships, which is your loved ones, your family, your kids, even your personal friends. And that is the biggest challenge, I think, of real estate, is that you sacrifice a lot of relationships to make real estate work.
Can you do both? Can you make it work without having to sacrifice that much?
Well, anything in life you can make work if you want to make it work. So you can, but you set these goals, and really, you set whatever goals you are. I always set really, really high goals, so I had lots to chase, and I was driven to get those. And I really should have set goals over here with the family that were equal or bigger goals, more important goals, but often didn't. And one thing I've started doing now, rather than setting goals, is setting sacrifices. What am I willing to sacrifice in a pro or a con? Am I willing to sacrifice family for this? What am I willing to sacrifice in business to have family? So I think you have to ask yourself, while you're setting goals, is what are you willing to sacrifice as well? And then your why has to fit into that. So it's almost a trifecta.
It's interesting because, it's easy in the moment, when there's, just tonight, I can be gone for 4 hours from my family tonight. It's fine. and in the short term, that's what we're thinking. But I did the math a couple weeks ago on the average person's screen time is 3 to 4 hours a day. If you take a half hour off of that and be intentional about that half hour to spend with your kids or do something else over 20 years, that's about 3,000 hours, which is a year and a half of work over a half hour a day.
Wow.
And all of a sudden you realize the compound effect of whatever you're doing, consistency over a long period of time. If it's if you're giving your life to only work, you're probably gonna have a really great business after 20 years. If it's not work at all, you're probably going to be poor, and maybe you'll have, there's a balance,
Yes.
but how our time is just
Yeah.
so powerful.
I will say this, talking about compounding effect. Today, my wife and I have this amazing relationship, but the amount of energy and time I need to put into my wife today versus a decade or 2 decades ago is significantly higher today because I burned the candle too bright over here and it snuffed out. So now I have to almost, hate to use the word overcompensate, but I have to give more energy here, I feel, to my wife than I've had to in decades past.
So what would you, if you can go talk to Randy at 28, what would you tell him?
Well, that's a great question. Randy at 28.
You're making $100,000 a year. Is
Yeah.
year 2 or 3 of real estate.
I would say Randy at 28 was a different Randy than a Randy at 38. At 38, I turned the dial up a lot.
In what way?
Well, I turned the dial up a lot in real estate.
Okay.
So my first 8-9 years, I had a lot more balance in my life.
Okay.
I was with my family a lot more. But at 37, 38, I turned the dial up, and I got really serious about real estate. I was good. I was,
What happened?
Very
What
good.
happened at 30?
38. I met a few people that were doing a lot better than me, and my competitive nature said, "Why not you?" And it started flowing. And once you get the momentum, the inertia, it starts breeding on its own, and it just started taking off. And next thing you know, it's not just 50, 60 deals, it's 160 deals, it's 200 deals, it's 400 deals. And then I started building a team and start really honing in on leadership. Up until that point, I was just a solo, and I could just lead myself. And I was a leader, but not the leader that I had to become to lead high-driven salespeople, or to get them to be highly driven.
Yeah.
And so that's where I really turned up the wick on what I was doing. And now there was a lot more commitment on my part to succeed in business prior to that. So it was a bit of a shift.
And so my question of what would you tell 28-year-old Randy?
Yes.
You answered that you actually had balance for the first 8-9 years.
Yeah,
and then less balance.
So at 28, I would have said, be careful of the capitalistic monster that could be created within yourself. And then at 38, it would be, caution, Randy. This could get out of hand and out of control, and you could be consumed by the money machine, making money rather than focusing on family. So,
and why is that dangerous? You call it a monster?
Well,
the capitalistic monster. I haven't used that phrase. I heard that phrase before, but
it can consume all your thinking, all your thoughts. And so when I talked earlier about, disciple, husband, father, businessman, that gets moved to the front. So now it becomes, how can I be the best businessman? And then I'll fit in God, husband, father. And so at 38, I started juggling those. Prior to that, I was pretty certain where they were. And then at that 40-ish range, I started realigning those on days, weeks, months, years.
Yeah. And when did you realize that this is what you had done at 38 and kind of shifted? And did you transition at some point back? Or, I mean, you mentioned earlier you're transitioning back still to a certain degree. You're trying to figure out that balance. I don't know if you ever.
Yeah. Things come your way. Good years, bad years, challenges, crucible moments. And so there's been some crucible moments that kind of shifted and shook me. Crucible moments like my wife saying, "I'm done." Whoa. Like, what do you mean done? You'll be fine. No, I'm done. I'm done. Okay. Nah, she's faking it. It's not really. But, that came out a few times. And, when you're really, really good at something, you think you're good at everything. You can be good at one thing, yet you think you're good at everything. So, really good at real estate. So, gosh, I got to be really good at being a husband. I got to be really good at any other business. So I, had a couple other businesses that failed basically, right? So that whole deception that starts happening in your mind when you get good at something, it pollutes and permeates so much of your life because your ego tells you you're good at everything and you're not. And so, crucible moments like that made me really think, whoa, like what's going on here? And kind of brought me back. And then I got to a point where I was just really frustrated with a lot of things that were happening in my real estate business. Nobody would know that from the outside. It was just burning inside.
Yeah.
And I knew in 2017, 2018 that something's going to break here. But the problem is when you're really, really good at it, like I was saying, you never want to give up the golden goose, and yet my wife was telling me it's either me or real estate.
Yeah. She's the golden goose or the real estate is.
Right. And I kept saying, but honey, you want to just throw the golden goose away? Like this is what we created. This is how we created everything. And you're just saying like, kick the golden goose out the door? You can't do that. And I'd even use the analogy like, listen, if I was, the most amazing singer in the world, are you telling me I should never sing again? Because this is my gift.
Yeah.
Real estate's my gift, and you're going to tell me never to sing again, even though I've got the most beautiful voice in the world? That's not right, is it? So it was a matter of pulling back and readjusting how I saw the golden goose, whether it be my wife or real estate, or how could they both actually survive and balance it out. And so in 2018, I made some major changes to what I was doing. I pulled away from being so busy, and I started realizing that my golden goose, my gift is really to start helping others, not only see how they can do better in business, but also to give them the signs that they might be out of control like I was.
That's awesome. Around 7,000 deals or 7,000 customers you deal with. It's no secret that means there's a lot of money involved. You made a lot of money, and I think that's awesome. I think Christian business owners are the most influential people in this world, and because they can do a lot with that. But there's also a lot of temptations that come with money. Having it, in the sense that it gives you a sense of power, control, freedom, those kind of things like that. Talk to me about how you've viewed money and how you've dealt with the temptations around it, challenges, the good and the bad.
Yeah. I've always been, and again, I watch my dad. I mean, so much of what we become is what we saw in our parents. At least a lot of us, and especially if you've got parents that are really people that you admire. And I really admire my dad. My dad had nice things, but it wasn't over the top. And he was always very good with his money and good with his decision making with the money. So I had that as a bit of a runway, a bit of an understanding of what to do. Of course, when money came along, I wanted to buy nice things, but I had a couple of amazing friends that had way more money than I did. In fact, they're still my friends today, and we invest in property together today. And he said to me one day, Randy, you know, I can be pulling up in whatever vehicle I want, but I choose not to. I can live in whatever house I want, but I choose not to. But what I do choose to do with my money is I make sure that it is working as if God would want it to work. And then from that, I can do great things with it. And so that was just a really good example for me to see friends that had a lot more money than I did that I really respected, how they were so good with their money, so disciplined and not just spending it on frivolous things. Yeah.
And would you be able to share some of the things and the ways that you've been able to make an impact with the money you've made?
So I do invest in real estate. I believe in real estate.
Yeah.
So I would rather buy another piece of property than a Lamborghini or a whatever. I'd rather be able to use that money to make money to then go and give to various charities. Giving makes me feel happy. I mentioned that earlier. So most of my energy has gone into finding ways to invest that money in properties. So then I can then facilitate giving in other ways. Yeah.
We talked about death earlier. Everyone dies. How do you view passing on money to your kids? Like there's all different opinions.
Yes.
I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I'm just curious what yours is. Some say, you know, I'm not giving anything to my kids. They have to learn how to work on their own. Some people say I'm going to go the other end. You know, like, have you thought about that at all? Or?
It's interesting. You know, my dad passed away 5 years ago. 6 years ago now. 6 years ago now, and he had about $3,000 left in the bank. I thought, wow, did he ever time that well? Okay. Did he ever play that well? But, you know, interesting, you know, as our kids were younger, we were growing it, you know, we were redoing our will all the time. And one of the pieces was that the kids were not all going to get the money. There was a large chunk that was going to go to charities.
Is there any charities in particular that you're passionate about?
Well, Seeds of Hope is really good. I'm working with a couple of people in Abbotsford on some other things. There's IDE, International Entrepreneurs Development, which does microloans all over the world and helps people in various parts of the world. So there's a number of things there. Yeah. I'm in church, of course, as well. Yeah.
When we set up this interview, I asked you what are some of the things that you're most passionate about, and so you gave me a few. Mindset and discipline for success was one of the things you mentioned that you're passionate about. Talk to me about that.
Well, mindset and discipline. I mean, they really go hand in hand. Show me somebody that's got a strong mind and is disciplined, and I think most areas of their life will be very well put together. They'll have some failures here and there, but you know, it's really about being strong in the mind and that's a strong will, yet we want God's will to reign, but we need a will as well. We need the desire and the will to be strong. And that's the consistency of doing something over and over and over again in life. It's interesting. I go to a gym that starts at 5 a.m. There's a class at 5 a.m. and it's interesting to see who's there each and every day and how some come and go. And I go, my mind just goes to, well, how disciplined are they in their own life if they can't be here consistently?
How do you learn discipline? There's a lot of people that haven't learned any discipline. They're 25 years old and they're like, I'm not disciplined in anything.
I think the easiest way to find discipline is to find somebody that you can model and imitate and mirror.
A mentor.
A mentor. Yeah. Somebody you admire. Like you have to admire them. Anything in life, if you want to do it, you better find that brings you passion. Either that person turns you on, lights you up, or whatever line of work it is, it better bring passion, because if it's not in your passion lane, or it's giving you passion, you're not going to do it. So make sure that there's some passion. So when it comes to discipline, finding a mentor that you really connect with, that you find, man, I could spend a lot of time with this person. I always think, when you meet new people, I think to myself, could I go on a road trip with this person? Could we like travel 10 days and sleep in, Motel 6s and eat horrible food and just hang out in a car for 10 days on a road trip? I think that's a really good test.
Yeah. Good test before you get married too.
Yes.
You make sure you do that. One more here, and then we'll wrap it up. The underdog to noble dog transformation was one of the things that you said. I read that, and I'm curious. What is that?
Well, I'm an underdog. I love to admit that I'm an underdog.
It's interesting you say that, because I think of you, see you now, and I'm like, Randy's not an underdog. He's or not anymore, at least. So
I'm still an underdog.
How so?
Absolutely. Once an underdog, always an underdog. You have a mentality, a mindset. It's kind of like the immigration mindset, the immigrant mindset. I think once an underdog, always an underdog. And so I've been an underdog my entire life. And in fact, the first time I recognized the underdog within me was in grade 2 when I went to a new school, and I was not expecting to go to school. We were just on the school bus, and we stop at the school, and the bus driver says, "Get off the bus." And I go, "Well, I'm only grade 2, but I know this isn't my school. It's the other school." No, my clipboard says you're off. Get off. So we get off, and knew nobody at the school. I never thought of this before, but it was almost like we moved in a sense, right? Because there was nobody in the school that we knew. And that first recess, going out to the playground, and all the kids are playing in the corners if they knew each other, and they're setting up a soccer game, and wandered over and said, "Can I play?" And they kind of, "Nah, you don't get to play," kind of thing. "Well, maybe we'll let you play, but you're going to get picked last," And I went, "Oh man, I've never experienced that before." Always the smallest kid in most classes. On every team, I was the smallest in most cases. So I always felt like I was an underdog, but it served me very, very well, because there's a mentality about being an underdog. But the noble dog brings out what I call prima powers within us. And so a lot of people talk about superpowers. I think superpowers are meant for Marvel movies, comic books, but not in real life. I think they're prima powers, primal within us, powers that God gives us. And so the powers within us as an underdog are, I believe, trust. So we trust in ourselves even though we know we're underdogs. And so that's the foundation of everything that we do. And you really need to trust yourself. It's very, very important to have that level of trust within yourself. But
Some people would say you should never trust yourself, because you're a lone ranger, or the heart's deceitful above all things, or so when you say trust yourself, to define, can you get more particular on what you mean by that?
Well, I believe you really need to love yourself and trust yourself. So if you don't love yourself, how can you love others? If you don't trust yourself, how can you trust others? And these are fundamentals to building relationships. So if I don't love myself, how can I love my wife? How can I really truly love my wife? I don't even like myself, so how can I love somebody else? If I don't trust myself, how can I trust my wife, my business partner, my kids? So I think these are so important to our world that I think that's a lot of the problems that we have in our world. We don't love ourselves, so how do we love others? We don't trust ourselves, so we don't trust others. We don't forgive ourselves, so we can't forgive others. So I think it's so important, and maybe I see it differently. Maybe it's my warped way of thinking, but I'm very trusting. I'm very forgiving. I think that's part of being a twin, actually, because I had this buddy in the womb as I was conceived, as my soul was being made. I had this other soulmate that was identical to me, that we hung out together, that we beat the crap out of each other in the womb, that we hugged each other, that we shared everything. And so, I trust the guy immensely. So why would I come out into the world and trust the world? Why wouldn't I forgive the world? Because that's what, twins do. We beat the crap out of each other one moment, and the next moment we're hugging each other.
So I would use the phrase, I guess back up a little bit. There's a lot of business people that have zero trust, that walk into every situation with high walls and very guarded. And my coach taught me, and I now talk about this as well. My own coaching is assume positive intent when you come into an interaction with someone, which in a way is you're giving trust to that. Why is that so powerful?
Well, trust can burn you. It's burned
exactly. That's why people are so guarded, right?
Yeah.
Because it can get really burned, and you're still choosing to say it's a positive, good thing that.
Well, I think you need to have some good people around you that help you understand. So I have this person called Jolene, my beautiful wife, that's really, really good at discerning when I get too trusting. In fact, I'll bring her into meetings on purpose. So I will say, listen, I'm meeting a person at such and such a time. Can you just pop into the office and stick your head in the door and say hi? And within 30 seconds, she's got a read. Where my read's something else because I'm so trusting. And she's a little less trusting. So we kind of have the yin and the yang happening, the balance happening. But I think the best business people have a high level of trust because you need a lot of trust to go through barriers. You're jumping over barrier after barrier. And if you never trust, it always feels like that person's closed. Yet it is the natural habit of ours. Human nature is, I don't want to open myself up because then I'm vulnerable, right? So we want to stay closed. Yeah. So, there's a balance between being too open. We've seen those people. I'm not one of those people where they're so open that, they just get snowed every time.
Yeah.
So you got to have some good checkpoints and filters in there as well.
I guess it's also the fact, like as a Christian, trusting God's in control of all things and cares about us, and we can go to Him before we go into any business interaction or other interaction and say, "Hey, please help me here," and trusting Him in that it makes it a lot easier to go into this thing and not have to you have to figure it all out all on your own, right? You're just being faithful with what you've been given.
Yeah,
it's good.
Awesome.
Thanks a ton for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for your openness. If someone's interested in reaching out to you or chatting with you about real estate or coaching or something else, what's the best way to do that?
My cell is 604-807-4366. Or just Google Randy Dyck or Dyck, depending on how you want to say it. Either way, I'm going to answer.
D-Y-C-K?
D-Y-C-K. You'll find me, no doubt.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Kyle.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe, share it with family and friends, post it on social media, any of that stuff. Send feedback in. I love feedback, good or bad, what you liked or didn't like about the podcast. So really appreciate it. Also, if you go to my Patreon, patreon.com/FuriouslyCurious, you can support the show that way. Get some other things with that as well. Overtime episodes that are from the Briefcase and the Barn series. So if you want to do that, highly appreciated. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.